Kareem had always believed that love existed in the spaces between words, not in grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but in the way two people could sit together as evening light faded through windows, content in mutual silence. He met Layla during a gallery opening 7 years ago. She stood before an abstract painting for 20 minutes without moving, and he found himself watching her instead of the art. When she finally turned and caught him staring, she didn't smile flirtatiously. She simply asked, "Do you see the hidden door in the blue section?" He did, and somehow that shared vision became the foundation of everything. Their relationship built itself slowly, like sediment forming stone. Morning tea prepared in comfortable quiet, the ritual of her reading poetry while he sketched building designs at their small kitchen table. She loved the predictability. He loved her appreciation for the architecture of routine. Faisal had been part of Kareem's life since childhood, the brother he chose when his actual family felt distant. Where Kareem moved through life like water finding its level, Faisal burned bright and loud, filling rooms with stories and laughter. People gravitated toward Faisal's warmth the way they appreciated Kareem's steadiness from a distance. The three of them fell into an easy pattern. Friday dinners at Kareem's apartment, Faisal bringing wine and stories from his work in journalism, Layla cooking dishes that filled the space with cardamom and comfort, weekend trips to the mountains where Faisal would photograph landscapes while Kareem sketched and Layla collected interesting stones. Kareem never questioned the dynamic. Why would he? The two people he trusted most in the world, safe under the same roof, sharing the same table. Faisal made Layla laugh in ways Kareem couldn't. He'd accepted long ago that he wasn't the entertaining one, and Layla's quiet appreciation for Faisal's stories seemed natural, generous even. But lately, something shifted in frequency, too subtle for Kareem to name. Layla had grown restless in their silences, reaching for her phone more often, suggesting they try new restaurants instead of cooking at home. Kareem attributed it to natural evolution, the way relationships must adapt or calcify. "We should meet at that new place downtown," Faisal suggested during a phone call, "the one with the open kitchen. Tomorrow night?" "Both of us?" Kareem asked. A pause. "Yes, both of you. 8 o'clock?" Layla seemed nervous when he mentioned it, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. "Tomorrow?" she repeated. "Yes, we should go." Kareem noticed the tremor in her voice but mistook it for excitement. He spent the next day finishing designs for a community center, his pencil moving across paper with the same measured precision he applied to everything. The building would be beautiful, spaces for gathering, for quiet reflection, for people to exist together without performance. He didn't know he was designing his own memorial. That evening, he dressed carefully, choosing the blue shirt Layla once said brought out his eyes. He arrived at the restaurant first, selecting a table near the window where they could watch the street. Faisal arrived next, unusually subdued, his typical brightness dimmed to something almost gray. "She's coming," Faisal said, though Kareem hadn't asked. Layla walked in wearing a dress Kareem had never seen before. And in that moment, though nothing had happened yet, Kareem felt the first crack appear in his carefully constructed world.
The waiter brought water, menus, small talk about specials that none of them heard. Layla's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded her napkin. Faisal stared at the table as if the wood grain held answers to questions Kareem hadn't yet learned to ask. Kareem ordered wine, attempting normalcy. The bottle arrived, was poured, sat untouched except for his single sip. The taste turned metallic on his tongue. "I need to tell you something," Layla said, her voice carrying that particular softness people use when delivering fatal news gently. "We both do." Kareem set down his glass with care, the way he did everything. His architect's hands, steady and sure, betrayed nothing of the sudden vertigo reshaping his inner landscape. Layla glanced at Faisal, who finally met Kareem's eyes. In his oldest friend's face, Kareem saw guilt wrapped in inevitability, sorrow tangled with something that looked almost like relief. "We've been seeing each other," Layla continued, each word chosen and placed like stones in a wall. For 5 months now. We didn't plan it, we didn't want to hurt you, but we fell in love, and we can't. We won't apologize for that. She paused, and in that pause Kareem heard 7 years collapsing into rubble. We're engaged. Faisal proposed last week. I said yes. The restaurant continued around them. Couples laughed at nearby tables. The open kitchen clattered with life and heat and the percussion of preparation. Somewhere a phone rang. The world remained stubbornly intact while Kareem's quietly disintegrated. He didn't shout. Anger would have required a belief that something could be salvaged through force, and Kareem had built his life on acceptance of structural realities. When a foundation cracks, you don't scream at it, you acknowledge the physics of collapse. How long have you been unhappy? He asked Layla, his voice level, almost clinical. She flinched at the question. It's not that I was unhappy with you, but you were incomplete, Kareem finished. I understand. Kareem, Faisal started, but stopped when Kareem raised one hand slightly. Do you love him? Kareem asked Layla. Yes, she whispered. Does he make you feel seen in ways I couldn't? Tears tracked down her face. Yes. Kareem nodded slowly, processing, calculating, measuring the distance between who he thought he was and who he'd actually been. A man so committed to comfortable silence that he never heard his partner's loneliness. A friend so trusting that betrayal arrived wearing familiarity's face. The fork felt impossibly heavy in his hand. He set it down carefully, precisely aligned with the knife. Then you should be together, he said quietly. I won't stand in the way of your happiness. Either of you. Layla had expected rage, accusations, the theater of heartbreak. What she received instead felt worse. His immediate, graceful surrender. As if she wasn't worth fighting for. As if their 7 years could be released without struggle. Just tell me one thing, Kareem added, looking between them. Did you wait to tell me, or did you wait to feel guilty? Neither answered. Kareem pulled his wallet from his jacket, placed enough cash on the table to cover the entire meal and a generous tip. He stood, the chair scraping softly against tile. Keep each other safe. Build something honest. I hope you find what I couldn't give you. He walked out into the cool night air, leaving them sitting in the wreckage of their confession, somehow more broken by his gentleness than they would have been by his fury. Behind him, Faisal reached for Layla's hand across the table, but it felt less like victory and more like inheritance of ruins.
The apartment became a project. Kareem threw himself into redesigning the space the way other men might drown themselves in alcohol or rage. He removed the bookshelf Layla had chosen, donated the couch where they'd spent countless evenings reading side by side. He repainted the bedroom, no longer the soft cream she preferred, but a darker shade that felt like productive solitude. Work consumed his days. He arrived at the office before sunrise, left long after dark. His colleagues noticed but said nothing. Kareem had always been focused. Now he was obsessive, pouring everything unsaid into blueprints and elevation drawings. Layla's messages arrived regularly at first, long paragraphs seeking understanding, closure, perhaps absolution for choices already made. Kareem read them all but responded to none. What was there to say? She'd found what she needed. He was learning to accept what he'd lost. 3 weeks after the dinner, Faisal appeared at Kareem's door on a Saturday morning. He looked tired, older somehow, as if guilt aged differently than grief. Can we talk? Faisal asked. Kareem stepped aside, gestured him in. The apartment's transformation made Faisal pause. The space looked nothing like the home he'd visited dozens of times. You've changed things, Faisal observed. Things changed. I'm adapting to new structural realities. They sat in the living room's unfamiliar configuration. Faisal searched for words while Kareem waited with characteristic patience. I never meant, Faisal began.
"I know you never meant to fall in love with her," Kareem interrupted gently. "I know, but you did. And she fell in love with you. These things happen. People grow toward different light." "We were brothers," Faisal said, the past tense cutting deeper than accusation. "We were," Kareem agreed. "But brotherhood doesn't guarantee immunity from human nature. You didn't choose this to hurt me. You chose it because it felt right for you both." Faisal's eyes reddened. "Why aren't you angry?" "Would anger change anything? Would it rebuild what's broken or return what's lost?" Kareem leaned forward slightly. "You want my rage because it would confirm I valued what we had. My acceptance feels like indifference, doesn't it? But it's not. It's acknowledgement that some fractures can't be repaired, only respected." Faisal left 20 minutes later, somehow more burdened than when he arrived. Kareem returned to work. A new project had landed on his desk, a library renovation for a private client. The consultation meeting was scheduled for Monday afternoon. The client was a woman named Nadia, perhaps 40, with sharp eyes that seemed to measure everything they encountered. She ran an independent bookstore and wanted to expand with a community reading space. "I need someone who understands that buildings should serve people's needs, not impose aesthetic vision," she said during their first meeting. "My last architect wanted to create art. I want to create sanctuary. Sanctuary requires understanding the people seeking it. Tell me about your community." They talked for 2 hours. She noticed things, the way his enthusiasm surfaced when discussing adaptive reuse, the shadow that crossed his face when she mentioned couples' reading nooks. "You're recently heartbroken," she observed, not unkindly. Kareem looked up, surprised. "Is it obvious?" "Only to someone paying attention. Most people don't," she smiled slightly. "I'm divorced, 3 years now. I recognize the architecture of rebuilding." Something in her directness felt foreign and necessary. They began meeting weekly to discuss the project, conversations that stretched beyond blueprints into philosophy, literature, the nature of spaces designed for solitude versus connection. Kareem realized he was laughing again, telling stories, asking questions instead of assuming understanding. Then the invitation arrived in his mailbox. Cream cardstock, elegant calligraphy, formal and final.
Kareem held the invitation for a long time, turning it over in his hands as if the reverse side might reveal different text. The wedding was scheduled for 2 months away, spring settling into early summer, the season of new beginnings. He could decline, send regrets wrapped in prior commitments. No one would blame him for choosing absence over facing the living monument to his loss. But absence felt like cowardice, and Kareem had built his life on facing structural realities, however uncomfortable. He set the invitation on his desk, where it remained, a small piece of elegant cardstock casting a disproportionate shadow. "You're going, aren't you?" Nadia asked during their next meeting. He'd mentioned it in passing, testing the words aloud. "I think I should. Not for them. For myself. To prove I can witness their happiness without being destroyed by it." "That's very evolved," Nadia observed. "Or very self-punishing. Sometimes they look similar. Which do you think it is?" She considered him carefully. "I think you're genuinely trying to move forward. But you're doing it the way you do everything, with quiet dignity instead of messy healing. Sometimes mess is necessary." "I don't know how to be messy," he admitted. "I noticed," she smiled. "You've color-coded the paint samples for my project." Over the following weeks, their professional relationship shifted into something more textured. Nadia invited him to her bookstore's poetry reading night. He invited her to see the community center he designed, now under construction. They fell into conversations that meandered through architecture, loss, the ways people rebuild themselves after betrayal. She was nothing like Layla. Where Layla sought comfort in routine, Nadia craved exploration. Where Layla communicated through silence, Nadia believed in direct honesty,
sometimes uncomfortably so. Where Layla had fit seamlessly into Kareem's existing life, Nadia challenged him to examine whether that life actually served him. "Why did you become an architect?" she asked one evening over coffee. "I like creating spaces where people feel safe," he answered automatically. "But do you feel safe in the spaces you create for yourself?" The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples expanding outward. I thought I did. I thought safety and love were the same thing. Build a comfortable space, maintain it carefully, and happiness would follow. But I built a museum instead of a home. Beautiful, quiet, and ultimately lifeless. And now, Nadia pressed, now I'm learning that safety without honesty is just elaborate avoidance, that comfort without challenge is slow suffocation. He met her eyes. You make me uncomfortable sometimes, in a good way. You ask questions I'd rather not answer and point out truths I'd prefer to ignore. Is that what you want? Discomfort? I want authenticity, he corrected, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. Nadia reached across the table, her hand covering his briefly. The gesture was simple, but it carried weight. Acknowledgement, possibility, the tentative architecture of something new. The weeks passed. The library project took shape on paper, spaces for gathering and solitude, light and shadow, public and private, all balanced carefully. It became, without Kareem quite intending it, a blueprint for the kind of relationship he now understood he wanted. The wedding invitation remained on his desk, approaching relevance. I'd like you to come with me, he said to Nadia 3 days before the event, to the wedding, if you're willing. She raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? That's complicated territory. I'm sure I don't want to face it alone, he said honestly, and I'm sure that whatever happens, I want you there, not as armor or distraction, but as witness to who I'm becoming. Nadia studied him for a long moment. Okay, she finally said, but if it gets to be too much, we leave. No martyrdom, no proving points. Agreed?
The wedding took place in a garden venue. All climbing roses and filtered sunlight, nature carefully curated into submission. Kareem and Nadia arrived as guests were finding seats, early enough to seem gracious, late enough to avoid extended small talk. Kareem spotted Faisal near the entrance, greeting arrivals with the practiced warmth that had always defined him. Their eyes met across the crowd. Faisal's smile faltered, then steadied into something genuine and sad. They navigated toward each other through the social current. You came, Faisal said quietly. I said I would. Kareem gestured toward Nadia. This is Nadia. Nadia, Faisal. They shook hands, Nadia offering a polite smile that revealed nothing. Thank you, Faisal said, though for what remained unclear. For coming, for bringing someone, for not causing a scene, for existing beyond the damage. Congratulations, Kareem replied, meaning it. I hope you build something beautiful together. Faisal's eyes misted. I never wanted. I know, Kareem interrupted gently. We've said everything that matters. Today is about moving forward, not revisiting wreckage. They parted with a brief embrace, brotherhood forever altered, but not entirely destroyed. Kareem and Nadia found seats toward the back. The ceremony began with traditional music, guests rising as Layla appeared in cream silk carrying spring flowers, radiant in ways Kareem remembered from their early days together. He waited for the knife of jealousy, the sharp twist of loss. Instead, he felt only a distant sadness for who he'd been, a man so committed to stillness that he never noticed his partner drowning in it. Layla and Faisal exchanged vows written in their own words, speaking of unexpected love, difficult choices, and finding courage to follow their hearts even when the path hurt others. It was honest, at least, more honest than his relationship with Layla had been for years. When the officiant pronounced them married and they kissed,
Kareem clapped along with everyone else. During the reception, Layla found him near the garden's edge, Nadia having stepped away to take a phone call. "Kareem," Layla said, her voice tentative, "thank you for coming. I know it must be difficult," he supplied. "Yes, but also necessary. I needed to see you happy to fully release what we had." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I'm so sorry for hurting you, for how it happened, for being human." Kareem smiled slightly. "We both were. I loved you in the only way I knew how, and it wasn't enough. That's not failure, just incompatibility. You needed fire, I offered stillness. You craved adventure, I built routine. You deserved better than how we handled this." Probably, I agreed. But prolonged honesty would have hurt worse than sharp betrayal. At least this way was clean, definitive. She searched his face. "You seem different. Lighter, somehow." "I am. I'm learning to ask for what I need instead of assuming silence equals understanding. I'm building something real instead of something comfortable." Layla glanced toward where Nadia stood, visible through the garden archway. "She's beautiful." "She's honest," Kareem corrected, "which is infinitely more valuable." They stood together in companionable silence, echoes of what they'd once shared. "Be happy, both of you. Mean it when you promise forever and speak up when things feel wrong. Don't let comfort become complacency." "I will," Layla promised. Kareem found Nadia and suggested they leave. She agreed immediately, no questions. In the car, she asked, "How do you feel?" "Lighter," he said, echoing Layla's observation. "Like I've been carrying weight I didn't realize I could set down." They drove to his apartment where the library project plans covered his drafting table. Nadia studied them while Kareem made tea. "You've added windows here," she observed, pointing to a revision. "More light. And areas designed for conversation, not just contemplation." "It's beautiful. Functional and honest. Like what I'm trying to build with you," Kareem said quietly. "If you're interested. No assumptions, no comfortable silences hiding difficult truths. Just two people choosing each other consciously, daily, with full awareness of what that requires." Nadia turned to face him fully, her hand finding his. "That sounds terrifying and necessary. I'm interested." They stood together at the drafting table, the evening light shifting through windows, two people beginning to design something new, imperfect, honest, and gloriously uncertain. Kareem finally understood that love reveals itself not in storms or comfortable silence, but in the brave choice to keep building even after everything collapses.